Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Right Here, Right Now, live Buffalo football talk presented by Forefathers Organics. I'm your host, Alex Brasky, and I welcome in a guest today, Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills and Locked On Scouting podcast. Did I get that correct, Joe?
Locked On NFL Scouting, but close.
There you go. So you can find Joe's work at the Locked On Network. Each week, we'll discuss Buffalo's favorite football team, myself, and typically my partner, Ajay Cybulski. We also like to keep everybody up to date with all the comings and goings from Orchard Park, in this case from Rochester, as the Bills continue training camp. Now have concluded 4 days. Before we get into our discussion, a word from Forefathers.
Unlock the power of nature with Forefathers Organics, your premium CBD store. We offer the highest quality CBD and hemp products to liberate your mind, body, and soul, helping you live happy and free. Our mission is driven by excellence and transparency, using cutting-edge scientific methods to combat stress and target issues at their source. From potent ingestible CBD to soothing topicals, all our products are USDA certified organic. Discover all natural wellness from farm to table. Visit forefathersorganics.com for more information.
All right, Joe, let's jump right into it. As you were on the grounds here at St. John Fisher for the first time since training camp started. You've been following everything very closely, but I'm sure you were excited to get your eyes on some things here this morning and afternoon. It was a hot day out there on the field, and really a hot day for Josh Allen. Why don't we start with just your overall takeaway from today's practice?
I think Josh Allen's a great place to start, where I think the word I would use is confident. And I think Josh Allen is really confident working the ball to his weapons and trusting them. And a lot of down the field touch throws between zones, deep zones where he would kind of work the football in on some outside the numbers, pushing the sideline, just putting it in spots for his guys to go make plays, and they did. I think it says a lot. I think it says a lot about the trust that he's already developed in these weapons. I think it says a lot about the weapons and kind of the common denominator that they all have in terms of size and ball skills, and gives you an idea of what this offense wants to be. I think you've heard the buzz phrase, everybody eats, and it's impossible to watch a training camp practice and not buy into that being true, because there are so many different weapons that are involved in so many different ways. And the common denominator is Josh Allen's dealing, and he's confident. You know that he's really, I think from a physical standpoint, very healthy. He's had battled some injuries the last couple of years, adjusted those mechanics and got back to kind of some of the basics this offseason. I think you're seeing it show up, and I think it says a lot that he has this much confidence early on, and not just like rolling out and improvising and ripping fastballs. I'm talking from the pocket, touch throws, down the field, middle of the field. It was really good to see.
Yeah, he fired touchdown passes to a multitude of receivers today, and really all of them fit into tight windows. The one to Keon Coleman obviously stands out down the left sideline, zipped it in there. Coleman made a nice fingertip catch. Another one lofted over the middle to Dawson Knox. And then another one to Khalil Shakir along the right sideline with Taron Johnson, and I believe it was Rasul Douglas converging on the play, and he fit it right into Shakir over those two defenders. So fitting the ball into tight windows, I think this is the hottest start to training camp that Josh Allen has had maybe since that 2019 season. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's how healthy he was this offseason that allowed him to kind of refine those mechanics and come into training camp raring to go, whereas in the past 2 seasons or so, he's had to use that offseason kind of as a recovery period. So I think he's put that time to good use, and he's really started training camp on the right foot. I mentioned that touchdown pass to Keon Coleman. Can you give us your perspective on that? It looked like Coleman beat Christian Benford on a route down the left sideline, and then, like I said, just extended and made a great play.
Yeah, I think it highlights the best things that Keon Coleman does, and that's be physical, use body control, play the ball, and show firm hands. And I know that he beat Christian Benford on the play. I'd say that Christian Benford was very competitive on the rep. It's not like he got cooked or left in the dust. He was pretty sticky in coverage, but part of, I guess, what Keon Coleman's superpower is, it's size and that ability to be strong, right? Like what he's able to do is stack and get on top of a corner. And so he did that. He got on top of Christian Benford, and he put Christian Benford in a position where if he's going to make a play on the ball, he has to go through Keon Coleman to do that. And I thought Coleman did a very good job of creating vertical leverage for Josh Allen. And then from there, it's about just putting in a spot where Keon Coleman can go get it. And Keon Coleman did. And I thought he did a good job of really kind of shielding off Benford from being able to get to the football and then just making a confident catch in a small window kind of towards the corner of the end zone there to the left side. And so I think it spoke to the best things that Keon Coleman brings to the table while also kind of doubling down on everything we said about Josh Allen to this point in our conversation today.
And Keon Coleman is another player, as has Josh Allen, just coming out, bursting onto the scene to start training camp, touchdown catch after touchdown catch, and a lot of them have been of the highlight reel variety. I think there was a lot of question whether or not he was going to be able to contribute immediately within this offense and at what level he would be able to contribute. I think those questions are starting to dissipate as he is proving it day after day against the Bills' top two corners. Like you said, not necessarily leaving them in the dust, but winning those one-on-one battles down the sideline, using his physical ability to come down with impressive catches. I'm starting to think the sky's the limit for this kid in his first year.
He had a hard time guessing how big the year one role would be when the Bills drafted him, and being mindful of how young he is and just how does he fit in? How does he fit into the mix? And now we've had training camp practices to assess that, and it feels like everything is leaning into and pointing towards Keon Coleman having a prominent role and Josh Allen trusting him. And I think that's always going to be the biggest thing is, okay, everything looks good, but when it comes time to make these throws in game situations, how much trust does Josh Allen have in the targets? And I think as these plays stack up every day, right? It feels like every day these plays are happening. It's only going to increase the confidence that Josh Allen has to deliver that ball to Keon Coleman. And the year one role at this point certainly feels like it's going to be a lot more significant than I anticipated it would be back when they made him the pick at number 33 overall.
Yeah, for certain. And he and Dalton Kincaid, both of those two, day after day, just putting on a show here at St. John Fisher, coming away with touchdown grabs and really fitting into the role that the Bills are looking for. And you saw Kincaid's celebration after his touchdown today, the infamous three pump from, I forget, McCringleberry or whatever, from Key and Peele. Another funny moment. His personality really starting to shine here at St. John Fisher. It drew the faux flag from Josh Allen and Dawson Knox, which leads me to the next player I want to discuss, Dawson Knox. You've always been a big proponent of Dawson Knox within this offense, and really your faith in him came true a couple of years ago. 6 touchdowns in that 2022 season, really seemed to put it all together, and then he dealt with the injuries last year. He's had himself a strong start to training camp, and he caught that beautifully lofted ball over the middle from Josh Allen that can be seen on the Bills' social media pages. I think Knox is in position to really make good use of that 12 personnel that the Bills are set to deploy this year.
Yeah, there's a role. There's a role for Dawson Knox. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's a leading character, but he's definitely a secondary piece of what this passing game wants to be. And whether it was that throw over the middle of the field that was between 3 defenders, I'm pretty sure it was Hamlin, Rapp, and Spector all right there. And Josh put it there for him. I thought he dotted the I quite well, and Knox was able to, I wouldn't call it a contested catch, but in traffic, certainly with bodies around him, be able to come down with that football. I thought another impressive rep was they kind of used him in a now screen and was able to dump it down to him. You saw some yards after the catch ability. Point being is that there's targets for Dawson Knox in this offense. I think you follow the money there a little bit too. You know, they're paying him a decent amount of money as well to play for the Bills. Not obviously Dalton Kincaid's the centerpiece of this tight end room, but the 12 personnel, the tighter alignments, kind of the vision for this offense, I think a lot of it leans into Dawson Knox as that inline piece of the tight end room and sets up a lot of the vision for Joe Brady in this offense. So no, he's probably not going to be the a top 3 target getter in this offense, but I think he's going to have a role that might be a little more meaningful than some people are giving him credit for at this point in time.
Alex Brasky, joined by Joe Marino, host of Locked On Bills and the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast. He was out here at St. John Fisher this morning and afternoon. Now back in the hotel room, Joe. You had to record your episode of the pod, which you can tell the people when that's going to be released. But you enjoying life here in Rochester so far? You got some good digs up there at your hotel?
Yeah, it's this. I know the hotel. It's the one I stayed at last year. So I you find a spot where you like the location, you like the way it's set up. So we came on back to it. But you mentioned it being hot. Maybe in Western New York hot.
Right.
For Charlotte, North Carolina guy, this was beautiful. This was felt like it was a fall or a spring morning. All day out there with a light breeze. It was a little warm, but the humidity's not here. So the greater Western New York region, always good to me. And I thought today was a good example of that. We're off to a good start here.
And you brought the family with you as well.
They're coming on Thursday.
Yeah,
so we have a few days here to kind of take it in without the family, but they're coming in on Thursday and excited for them to be able to get to the stadium on Friday for the Blue Red.
So we've already talked about Keon Coleman, Josh Allen, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. We'll just keep going down the offensive roster here because it seems like everybody got involved today. Matt Collins, who spoke after practice, we'll touch on a few of his comments that I was there for post-practice. But Hollins is another player that you weren't sure of his role in the passing game, maybe lesser, more so to a degree than with Keon Coleman. You knew Coleman was going to be involved. Hollins, a lot of people weren't sure he was even going to make the roster. Then you start looking at him as just a run blocker, special teams player. But day after day, he's continuing to build that rapport with Josh Allen. Caught another touchdown pass today, going up and over Christian Benford. Really mossed him on the play, using that size and physicality, like you said, a common theme amongst this year's Bills wide receivers. Just the confidence that he exudes out there. And the way that his teammates talk about him, particularly Josh Allen, leads me to believe that he's going to have a role on offense this year.
Yeah, I bet he has a C on his jersey when the Bills play the Arizona Cardinals in Week 1. So for whatever you think is going to happen with Mac Hollins, he's here and he's got a role, and he's getting first-team reps over guys that might surprise you. And certainly the Bills are working in a lot of guys, but it's undeniable how often Mac Hollins is involved, and not necessarily just being on the field, but Josh Allen throws in the ball. Like you mentioned, that catch over Christian Benford where he kind of had to come back to the ball. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me a little bit of Matt Milano's interception last year against the Raiders, but, obviously not an interception, a completion. Right. So it was a fun play to watch for sure. I think Mac Hollins is a fun player to observe. Just like from the second he goes on the field, and it's not just like the big hair and the cut up shirt that he wears, right? Like, there's features of him that draw you to him, but then you watch him. It's undeniable energy. He challenges everybody. You could see how there's a leadership. Like, he's so comfortable, and he's not a new player in the NFL. He's been around for a while. He's bounced around, and like I think it's fair to caution yourself a little bit as like a north of 30 receiver that has only one meaningful year of production. But I think the ways that he's going to impact this team are probably going to be a lot bigger than how many targets and catches he ends up getting, although I do think there might be a few more than some people might be anticipating at this point in time. He's definitely been a major storyline, and there's a tangible, like, you can feel it. You can feel this guy. And I think those are the players you should come away talking about from practices. And one of my goals in watching practices, and I've had a chance to take in a number of Bills practices, other teams, Senior Bowl, Shrine, a lot of different practices. One of my goals is not necessarily to go in there and say, I want to watch this player or this thing. I kind of want to let it speak to me, right? Like, let the players pop off, the guys that you can feel. And Mac Hollins certainly fits into that bucket in a big way.
And I asked him during his post-practice press availability about what everybody is talking about, his no-shoes approach to life. He did say when the weather gets down to 35 degrees, the shoes come on, but pretty much at all other times, he goes shoeless aside from being out there on the football field in cleats. And then I asked him how it all started, and a couple of reporters with good follow-up questions said it all started a few years ago when he was recovering from a groin injury, and he was having trouble getting over the injury. And he met, I believe, a specialist or somebody in the rehab realm, and they were shoeless. And he kind of picked it up from there, and that allowed him to, in his mind, get over the groin injury, and hasn't suffered really any ill effects since. And I'll just read a quote from him. I asked him the benefits of going no shoes. He says, the strength of the foot, strength of the ankle, strength of the knee release of negative free electrons from the body where grounding comes from, so you feel more grounded. You're cleaner, you move faster, you're strengthening the whole body so your knee doesn't have to take so much pressure since your ankles are not developed. And then this was the funny part. Shoes are a tool. You wouldn't walk around with a hammer just because you got to nail something every once in a while. Why do you walk around in shoes? Just because you might step on something every once in a while. So he is just an interesting character. You spoke to it already, and I'm sure more to come from Mac Hollins as the season goes along.
Alex, I think there's an important question here. Am I going to see you shoeless tomorrow at practice? Like, are you in on this? Are we adopting this?
You know what, Joe? I think you just may have given me an idea. I think I might get some great interaction on Twitter if I were to do that. That's in the mind now. That's certainly under consideration. And listening to him talk about the benefits of it. I mean, how could you deny it? Getting over the groin injury, and I'm all about being one with the environment and the earth. So I'm all about Hollins and shoeless Mac.
Hey, listen, I hope to see it. I hope to see you there. I'll be sure to not step on your toes, if you wind up doing that tomorrow.
All right. One more pass catcher I'll just touch on quickly. Brian Thompson had a great offseason training program, caught a 60-yard bomb from Mitch Trubisky today. Another one of the big touchdowns for the Bills. Anything you saw on that play or from Trubisky or any other pass catchers that we haven't mentioned?
Yeah, that was a highlight play. He got behind that safety and just a matter of just not overthrowing him, right? So big explosive play for sure. I think he really stood out. And I think Tyrell Shavers as well as a wide receiver that's getting a lot of first team opportunities. And he's involved. He's a guy that they're not shy about throwing him the football. And so seeing Thompson, seeing KJ Hamler getting first team run, all of that says a lot to me, but there's probably more to be said for the guy that's not getting those opportunities, and it's Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is a player that, certainly what he did in Green Bay and Kansas City and the success that Rodgers and Mahomes had when he was in the building, there's some hype there, but he didn't get first team work today. And as a depth receiver, you got to play special teams, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling doesn't play special teams. And so all these other players that are out snapping him with the first team are also guys that either have return ability or they can cover kicks and punts. And so I got to certainly have a note here to pay attention to MVS and what type of opportunities he's getting, because right now, if you just watch this practice and you had no idea that who he is or that he had guaranteed money on his deal or anything like that, you might think to yourself, I don't know, this guy doesn't really have a path. So we'll see. I'd definitely be filing that away to keep an eye on the rest of the way here.
And another receiver before we move to the defensive side of the ball, Chase Claypool hasn't really stood out yet during training camp. He did limp off the field after a rep today. He stayed on the practice field, didn't return to participation. A lower body injury with him. We'll be sure to monitor that tomorrow. Will Clapp went out during offensive line, defensive line one-on-ones with an apparent elbow injury. He's apparently at this point been the backup to Connor McGovern at that center position, where Cedric Van Pran-Granger working largely with the third team. And another player that was injured, Nicholas Morrow, apparently suffered a hamstring, what looked like a hamstring injury. He came off. He remained on the practice field as well, but he didn't return to participation either. And before James Cook excused from practice today as well. And then Mike Edwards, the offensive line version, was a non-participant, but he was at practice as well. We'll stay in the offensive line. Something that jumped off the page to you immediately when I saw you at practice today. I asked you what your takeaways were, and obviously with you, you said it was tough to narrow it down. You see so much out there. But one of your top takeaways was Connor McGovern snapping to Josh Allen, and right after you said it to me, sure enough, he rolled one back there to him. Just what did you see before that rolled snap that concerned you, and are there any ongoing concerns in terms of that?
Well, yeah, appreciate Connor McGovern coming through for me there in that moment where, it's like the kicker and you say that they never miss and then they miss. So he made me right there, unfortunately, because I saw him dribble another one earlier, a couple of other snaps where, Josh is just having to adjust to the ball and offense is timing, right? And part of that timing element is that initial snap and that ball being where it's supposed to be and the quarterback being able to have confidence in that so he can focus on the defense and his receivers and what he's supposed to do. And I think that Connor McGovern today, this is the only practice I've seen with my own eyes, I thought there was a lot of snaps that were just erratic, none that were like catastrophic, over his head, or not catchable. But you could tell that Josh Allen has to be a little more dialed in on that, as opposed to it being a very routine thing that we saw with Mitch Morse. I think the Bills are obviously fully committed to this Connor McGovern going to center. Like, I don't anticipate this not like them going in a different direction with this whole plan, but we need to see this cleaned up. And I think the good news is that it's day 4 of camp and it's still July, and the Bills play a game September 8th. So there's certainly time. And McGovern is relatively new to being a permanent center and doing it with Josh Allen. So there's a time on task element of this that it needs to grow. But we need to see growth here, or else this is something that could lead to some negative plays and maybe some bad turnovers if it doesn't get cleaned up. So it's early. We're filing it away. We'll see if the trend continues.
One last item on offense, the tight end 3 battle, we'll call it. I think Zach Davidson's starting to gain on Quentin Morris. Morris presents more ability on special teams, I think, than Davidson. But in terms of a pass catcher, I think Davidson gives you a lot more at that position. Just your perspective on that, and do you think Davidson might have a chance to beat out Quentin Morris for that tight end 3 role? Davidson's
such a fascinating player. When you go to Central Missouri, he was like a punter and in addition, like an all-American punter and an all-American tight end as well. Had like
Bills love their versatility, Joe.
Dude, I think his receiving stats are off the charts. He had like 1,000 yards on like a very small amount of receptions that you just very surprising. So yeah, the more you can do. Yeah, I think it's a good observation, Alex. If you are dialed in on the practice beyond the Josh Allen snaps, 84 caught the ball a ton. Like he did. And is he ready to unseat Q Morris? I don't know. Like, I think Q Morris is a player that last year, well, I mean, the receiving stats have never been super impressive. He did have the big catch against the Giants to win the game. I thought his growth as a blocker has been something that I've really enjoyed from Q Morris, but it certainly feels like Zach Davidson is doing enough that makes you say, kind of wonder. I kind of wonder if he can be a thing here. And he missed like all of last year. Did he have an ACL very early in the spring?
He went out during training camp. He was seemingly coming along last offseason in training camp as well. And then he went out with that injury and that kind of thwarted his progress.
I think it's something that you file away and say, I wonder if Zach Davidson can make some noise here. But I think that's a great call out by you. He definitely popped today.
And that's not the only position battle that was on display at training camp today. The second safety role still up for grabs. Damar Hamlin went back in with the first team after it was Cole Bishop the day before and Mike Edwards the day before that. Now Hamlin, his second day with the first team. I would imagine we'll see Edwards and then Bishop in the days to come. A lot of people thought Edwards had this job locked up. That shoulder injury during the offseason training program obviously slowed his role to gaining that starting role. And now Hamlin has really shined since that offseason training program. So some musical chairs there. And was there anything that stood out to you from that position today at training camp?
Yeah, the rotation certainly continues. I'm fascinated to see how that moves forward. I know that like there was at one point last year with the linebacker deal where it was Bernard, Dotson, and Spector got like one practice and then we never saw from him again. So like, does Bishop get another day?
Right.
Is he really in this mix? Yeah, I'm fascinated to see it play out. I thought Cole Bishop did have a good day. Like early on in 7-on-7, he was the middle of the field safety and should have picked off Josh Allen. He broke on the ball and really invaded the catch point. It was a middle of the field shot to Dawson Knox, and Bishop very confidently clicked and closed on the ball and just didn't secure the interception. Thought he was around the football consistently in practice, and I thought he played with a lot of confidence. And so one of my objectives, I know I said that I don't really do this, but I did want to kind of get a feel for Cole Bishop because I feel like there's just been not a whole lot said other than he's kind of working in, but how is he looking? And so I wanted to kind of get a feel for his athleticism and then just his confidence. I thought it looked pretty good in this practice that I observed. But I thought Damar Hamlin did a nice job today. I know that he was like we keep talking about these great plays made by the Bills receivers and Hamlin's around the ball, but like that's kind of the deal, right? Like sometimes a better throw and a good catch can beat good coverage. And I thought that Hamlin was kind of on the wrong side of that a few times. I thought he had some good downhill moments though too, where like the Bills ran the ball a little bit and did some rollouts and had some guys leaking into space where they wanted him to turn and run. And I thought Hamlin like took good angles, and nobody's tackling, but you could see he was in good positions to be square. So I think it's open, and there's so much to play out here. I'm not sure I could say right now that somebody has the upper hand, because I think they've all flashed in good ways.
Another item on the defensive side of the ball, Dwayne Smoot seems to be locking up that fourth defensive end edge rusher role as the days go. Had another would-be sack today. I believe he was working against Lale Collins on the play, burst into the backfield and really just making an impact day after day. Another player that going into training camp, you didn't know what to expect. You thought maybe Casey Toohill and others had a chance to work their way behind Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, and Greg Rousseau. But Dwayne Smoot coming off a few consecutive seasons with 5-6 sacks before that Achilles injury, starting to return perhaps to that form. And boy, that would be a boon for the Bills, because it's unclear what to expect from this edge rusher position this year.
Yeah, I thought he looked good today. Lyle Collins, tough, man. He struggling to move, struggling to bend. It's hard to watch, and Smoot took advantage of him today. And it sounds like Smoot's been having a great camp. And you listen to Bobby Babbitt recently just raving about the guy, talking about him being such a high character guy.
Old school edge, he said, that he plays with.
Yeah, he's a nice player. I watched him for a while at Jacksonville. I've thought pretty highly of him. I think he's a guy that can elevate that Shaq Lawson role for this defense as very consistent run defender, very good contained rusher. It's going to be a big asset against some of these mobile quarterbacks, but a little more juice as a pass rusher, and that inside-outside versatility is going to help him a ton. And so I think you look at this defensive end group, and there's a clear top four in Rousseau and Epinesa, Miller, and Smoot. And then I think where it gets interesting is who's the fifth guy, between Toohill and Jonathan and Solomon. I think there's a nice battle between those three guys. But I think Smoot's kind of locked in as a guy that's going to get a jersey on game days, be a top four player, and this edge mix and the versatility and kind of the impact he's made early on is certainly strengthening that case.
Absolutely. And you had your first opportunity to watch Matt Milano today. I know that you, along with many others, were able to see my video. We discussed this on the practice field, how you kind of saw what I saw in that video a few days ago. I posted another one today. Milano maybe not fully back, but why don't you give us your perspective on what you saw from him and where you think he is in his progress back from that leg injury that ended his season last year?
Well, the team obviously is treating Matt Milano like he's Matt Milano, like he's taking every snap. Mm-hmm. He's on the field. He's playing in coverage. He's running around. He's testing things out. And I think that's where he's at. He's kind of trying to get his legs up under him and develop confidence in that ability to drive off the leg that was injured. And it's very much a work in progress. I don't know that I don't think he looks bad. I don't watch him and sit there and say, man, I don't think this guy has any juice. I thought there was plenty of instances of him getting outside towards the sideline and cutting out routes that are designed to kind of leak into space and then get upfield, or some outside runs and him getting to those spots. I think you see that happen. And while if you want to take some video and slow it down frame by frame and pause it, and you can certainly convince yourself that there's segmentation, but I see guys that are completely healthy with segmentation from time to time. So I think it's fair to say that it's a work in progress. He's trying to develop comfort, but it's day 4. This is his first time doing full speed football things. And so certainly he's going to look a whole lot better on September 8th than he is on July 28th. So I think you got to let this play out and trust that he is a player that's working back. But whether it's 4 days of full work and how Matt Milano is springing around and testing things, I think that's exactly what he's supposed to be doing right now.
And I think you saw that play out during today's practice, kind of an up and down practice from Milano. I saw him get beat twice in coverage early on during 7-on-7 work, which is a tough situation for the defender. Once he got beat by Ray Davis, another by Dalton Kincaid, but later in the practice he responded, and like you said, he chased down Ray Davis along the boundary and slowed his progress down the field. So that's the Matt Milano that you remember, going sideline to sideline, flying around like his hair's on fire. And you're seeing shades of that throughout training camp. The last thing I wanted to discuss before we get on out of here, the first 2 scuffles of Bills training camp occurred on Sunday. Long practice in the sun may have contributed to that. It was really hot out there, and the Bills went a little bit longer than they have the past few days. The first one was between Chase Claypool and Jamarcus Ingram, who got tied up after a play during team drills. Seemed like Ingram was the aggressor on the play. Claypool just kind of threw up his hands and walking away. Both players had their helmets removed during the brief dust-up, but teammates came in and cleared things up. And then near the end of practice, during O-line, D-line one-on-ones, the rookie Dwayne Carter sticking his nose in there with Alec Anderson. It was a 3-rep situation. Usually it's just 1 rep and done, but Carter went offside, and then he had a rep with Anderson, and they kind of got into it, a little pushing and shoving after that play, and then coaches wanted him to go at it again, and then after that rep, both won by Alec Anderson, by the way, Dwayne Carter got up and had some more pushing and shoving and some chirping between the two, but good to see the rookie sticking his nose in there and not being afraid of the veteran Anderson. But like I said, both skirmishes rather timid, nothing really to be concerned with. We've seen it in the past, and I'm sure we'll see a couple more before training camp is through. But Joe, I appreciate you joining me. Any plans here in Rochester tonight, or are you just laying low after a good day of training camp?
We'll see. I got to get dinner some point here, so I'm excited to figure out what the culinary scene is here in Rochester.
The best restaurant in Rochester, if you're looking for fine dining, Red Rochester over on Winthrop. You cannot go wrong. If you enjoy seafood, get the scallops. They are absolutely delicious. But Joe Marino for the Locked On Bills and Locked On NFL Scouting podcast. Appreciate you joining me. Any last takeaways or anything you're looking forward to as your time goes on here at camp this week?
I thought we hit a lot of the notable takeaways. The thing maybe we didn't get to that caught my eye is Kaiir Elam. Kaiir Elam, like, legitimately getting first team run. I know the first reps of first team are Benford and Douglas, but there were plenty of situations throughout that practice where he came in and it wasn't just Benford dropping off. Sometimes it was Douglas, and we've seen the Bills rotate corners. Like, it's not been beyond what they will do. And so not only did he get those opportunities, but I thought he played extremely well. An
interception today for Kaiir, another interception, 2 straight practices with a pick.
He did. And my favorite thing about that interception, he was in zone coverage. And I think it was cover 3 where he was responsible for the deep third on the left side. And it was, Shane Buechele, like, just kind of laid one in the middle of the field, like, late, and it was a bad throw. But for Kaiir Elam to recognize that there was no threat to his side, not continue to cover grass and, like, break on the ball over the middle of the field in a zone that wasn't his, to come away with a takeaway was really strong. And then I think while you were watching the one-on-ones with the O-line, D-line to finish practice, I was watching the one-on-ones with the DBs and wide receivers, and he clamped up Keon Coleman on a particular rep, and Josh tried to throw it, like, outside for Keon Coleman to go get the ball, and then Kaiir Elam was able to have a pass breakup. And so I thought Kaiir Elam was really good, and he got reps with the first team, and we're sitting here talking about these guys catching touchdowns over Benford and Douglas. And look, maybe the book's not written here on Kaiir Elam. We gotta see what he's got, but he's definitely getting an opportunity. It feels like he's playing well.
The former first-round pick sneaking up on Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford, perhaps. Before we get out of here, a word from Forefathers Organics.
Unlock the power of nature with Forefathers Organics, your premium CBD store. We offer the highest quality CBD and hemp products to liberate your mind, body, and soul, helping you live happy and free. Our mission is driven by excellence and transparency, using cutting-edge scientific methods to combat stress and target issues at their source. From potent ingestible CBD to soothing topicals, all our products are USDA certified organic. Discover all natural wellness from farm to table. Visit forefathersorganics.com for more information.
All right, Joe, tell the people where to find you.
Locked On Bills, daily podcast on the Buffalo Bills that you can find wherever you're listening to this outstanding podcast. I'm on X at the Joe Marino. And thanks for having me on, Alex.
You got it. We will see everybody next time.